Welcome to the Irish Pagan School podcast. Your hosts are authors and co-founders of the Irish Pagan School here in County Waterford, Ireland, Laura O'Brien and Jon O'Sullivan. Fáilte.
Is the Morrigan a dark or dangerous deity? Well, thank you, Bugus Fulcha. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School here. And this is unfortunately quite a common circumstance that we find when people come to the school or come to the Mórrígan Academy, which we have as well. And people trying and exploring a relationship with this goddess of sovereignty, battle, prophecy, poetry, change, transformation, shape-shifting, magic practices. There's a lot that we can say about the Morrigan, but I'm not here to talk about what the Morrigan is, but how people perceive the Morrigan. We've had people come to us a couple of times and they say that they mention to other people in their community or other kind of pagan inclined individuals that they're exploring a relationship with the Morrigan, and they're invariably met with a ooh, oh well, you better be careful, or like, oh yeah, that's a dangerous goddess to be working with or whatever. And it adds a whole extra level of apprehension and in some cases fear to their spiritual practice. So yeah, I thought I'd take a moment to maybe have a bit of a chat about this concept of dark or fearful Morrigan or fear of the Morrigan, and try and alleviate some of it, but then also try and speak to it to help people process, because that's what we do as educators in Irish mythology, heritage, culture, customs, and spirituality. Right. So, yeah, it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon that we would hear people being like, oh, well, yeah, you do know she's a goddess of battle or she's a goddess of death, or like a lot of the times that usually what's coming from those circumstances is the fact that the person is misinformed. They're not aware of the nuances. They're not aware of the associations. They may have misinformation from exterior, out of cultural context. Like, it's not their fault, but it's worth being aware that they may not know enough, or they may have had personal experiences with their own processes or their own explorations that they were not ready for, and therefore they have backed away from, and they titled or they put the Morrigan in this concept of dark or dangerous deity. First things first, really, she is a goddess of sovereignty. She is a goddess, an Irish goddess, very specifically an Irish deity, but a lot of people associate death with her. She's not a psychopomp. She doesn't do death like work about like traveling people to the other world. The other world isn't an underworld or a hellscape as presented by early Christian kind of people. It is on sale Ella. It is another life. So though she is involved with death from a certain perspective, it's probably more from the point of view of battle, death in battle. She has the of na Mórrígan. There is the aspect of the Bive, which is the Scald Crow, which is the carrion crow, who flies over battlefields. So if you have any kind of reticence about understanding what battle is or understanding what death is, then that's where you're beginning to see how people would have adverse reactions to a goddess. But culturally speaking, from Irish practices, death is part of life. We have a long tradition. You can don't even take my word on it. Go to dukas.ie, look in the folklores, search for the word wake, Irish wake. You don't even have to go as far as dukas.ie, like, search for Irish wake in any search engine at all, and you'll find customs involving laying out the dead in their homes for at least a day or night, overnight, where the family come and interact with that person before they are taken to be buried for their final moments in existence. So we have a very strong culture around engaging with death and engaging with our dead. So it's not something that is put away from us. It's not something that is like kept separate from us. So when we deal with deities who deal with death, it's as natural as life. It's part of the process. And also from a spiritual point of view, Irish paganism does involve transmigration of spirit, which is the return or reoccurrence of spiritual energies in new forms. So yeah, maybe more on that in a different talk if anyone is interested to talk about transmigration of spirit. So the Morrigan's association. The Morrigan isn't even the only deity associated with it. The Dagda, one of the epithets is Dagda Dawn, which is as in Chalk Dawn, as in the house of the dead that exists in the other world. where people from our world who follow and believe in the practices and the faith structures go to when they die. That's where their spirit ends up, in Chalk Dun, which is Dagda Dawn. So it's not even they go through the Morrigan's cave into the other world, they go to this House of the Dead. Um, all of which really indicates that there is this challenge sometimes when misinformation forms part of people's opinions and therefore leads to unintentional bias. Um, Battle, for instance, battle, war, and conflict, culturally speaking, from the mythological cycle even into the Ulster cycle, was a very different circumstance to how we understand battle and war now. Battle and war then was conflicts, skirmishes, like it may be invasions or raids known as taunts, all of which was a battle for some asset or some privilege or some power structure or some arrangement. It was never a battle of annihilation. In fact, annihilation, war, and concepts of genocide and stuff come a lot more recently in our history than we prefer to think. So, yeah, there was no industrialization of war that is only a couple of decades old. So, even there, the concept that people have or the association that they might have now about battle and war and death being associated with the Morrigan, we have to look at the cultural context from where that information comes from, not in the now. Not that she's not invested or informed. There are many people who do military service or have come out of military service who connect with her through those aspects, and that can be a healthy way for them to process through what they experience. So, this kind of hesitance or reticence or worry about dealing with a deity, the Morrigan is no more dangerous than any other deity, honestly, because we are dealing with our spiritual progression, even though everyone's like, oh well, that Dagda, he's the big daddy Dagda, he's so lovely and so friendly and so cuddly. Yeah, let's not forget the fact that he charged a battle line and during the first battle of Moytura and broke a space big enough for 150 people to follow. Let's not forget the fact that when his child was dead, he went and he straight up murdered three people to take up the power to bring his child back to life. The Dagda is as threatening as the Morrigan, as any other deity is. So what it really comes down to is understanding the lore, understanding the information, understanding the story, and building a right, respectful, honorable relationship with whatever deity it is, so that you can do it honorably, honestly, and respectfully. So certain aspects of the Morrigan are presented in such a way as to be more shadow work or darkness, or like you cannot, light would not exist without darkness, and this kind of toxic positivity that we see of, oh, there is only love and light, you need to raise your vibrations by ignoring the fact that there are negative emotions. It's bullshit. We have negative emotions for a reason, we have negative aspects for a reason. We are a multifaceted expression of creativity or creation or humanity, whichever way you want to put it. We are a collection of all of those aspects. And some of the most toxic people I have come across aren't toxic, aggressive, negative. They're actually toxic, positive, in that they refuse to acknowledge any aspect of their own failings or their own need for self-work, self-reflection, self-care, or adjustments to behaviors. So when a person expresses their exploration of a relationship with the Morrigan and they meet with that adversity or meet with that reaction, it actually tells you more about that person's perception of the Morrigan than your own exploration of the Morrigan. And I would encourage anyone to keep exploring, follow your own interests, do it as ethically and honorably as you can with the resources that you can find available for you, because it is your spiritual life at the end of the day. It is your spiritual process. Now, there's an extra aspect to this which bears mentioning, and that is the translation of the Morrigan could be read as the Great Queen, as in the Great Queen of the other world. She is pretty much a big fucking deal in the other world, which means that she does have the allegiance and the authority over people of the She, people of the other worlds, also known culturally nowadays as fairies. We don't like to use that word because it is a bit of a misnomer when it comes to Irish gentry or other folk, and they can get a bit pissed about it. Fucking with the she, getting involved with them can lead to a lot of harm, danger, difficulty, frustration, bother, everything ranging from mischief of spoiling your dairy goods right the way up to making you go blind and stealing your property. So there's a lot of difficulty that can happen when dealing with the she. The Morrigan is a goddess. She is a deity. She is of the other world, but she is a category entirely different and above the Fae, the she, the other crowd. And so people who then have this fear of the other crowd and then try and transpose that fear onto the Morrigan, again, are showing you more about their misunderstanding of the goddess than they are about the goddess herself. So is the Morrigan a dangerous dark deity that you should definitely stay away from? Absolutely fucking lutely not. What you should do is approach respectfully, approach honestly, approach honorably, because she don't brook no bullshit. I've come across it time and again. She will not stand for it. She won't have it. And she will very clearly let you know what is appropriate and what is not. And those who are willing to adjust, those who are willing to transform and change and engage with the process of her guidance can go a long way and do go a long way. We hear those stories in our schools. We hear them in the Mórrígan Academy. All of this information is shown time and again by experience from people who have been coming to our teaching for over a decade, exploring and learning and growing through relationship with the Morrigan. But we also have people who turn up with entitlement or with a privilege or with misinformation and don't sit down and take the learning, don't take the step back and try and figure it out. And then they run crying off into the internets and the wilderness about how mean the Morrigan is and how bold she is and how upsetting it was that they never got the pat on the head that they were looking for out of their spiritual growth. Again, these people who express those opinions are telling you more about themselves than they are actually telling you about the Morrigan. As with all of it, though, we're educators. There is space at the table. If you're willing to come, if you're willing to sit, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to grow, if you're willing to take on board, deconstruct your privileges, deconstruct your colonized mentality, if you're willing to get in and do the shadow work on yourself, there is huge amounts of growth to be found. And the Morrigan is a great ally in that work if you're willing to do the work. So hopefully this has been an interesting chat, and thank you very much for being here for it. If you would like to know more, you can go to the Morrigan.academy. We have free resources there available. Take the 5-day challenge. Put yourself to the test. You'll get an email for 5 days. It'll give you a prompt from the direct Irish lore about the Morrigan. It'll give you an opportunity to meditate on it, to think about it, to process through it, and to see if you integrate part of that into your own processes and your own life's spirituality and growth. If you're not Morrigan interested, that's okay too. Go to irishpagan.school/free. You'll find a whole lot of free content there as well for your own growth and for your own exploration. As ever, it is yours to look after and yours to take care of. And we're just educators, guides, and signposts in how to do it and maybe how to do it a little bit safely and a little bit more ethically and honorably. Until next time, look after yourself. Take care. Agus Slán. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a positive review in your podcast listener. Then head over to irishpaganschool.com and enroll in one of our free or paid courses. Slán go fóill, and we will see you next time.